And we are live, Senators.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon again, everybody. This is the Vermont State Senate Committee on Institutions. Today, still February 16th, 2022. We are shifting gears at the moment from the fairs over to the military. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Colonel Jacob Roy. I think this is your first time before us. Am I safe in that assumption?
Actually, no, sir. I've been there before. I've just been kind of out for the last year or so. The military sent me away to school, so just coming back.
Well, welcome to Senate Institutions. Just a couple of quick things. The YouTube environment that we are in right now means we haven't the foggiest idea who's out there actually watching us. So I try to let everybody know when they first begin testifying that, number one, I would hope that you could give us a 30-second rundown of your biography so that people know who you are and how you fit into this process. And during your testimony, it may come to pass that you say something that red flags for me the thought that perhaps somebody out there in YouTube land doesn't understand what you and I may actually know all about. So if I interrupt you for any reason, it's probably because I'm going to ask you to explain what X, Y, or Z happens to mean. The conversation, for those of you watching at home with our spreadsheet, we're now dealing with Section 11 of the Capitol bill. This is the military's major maintenance, renovations, and ADA compliance. Colonel, I'm hoping that you're going to give us the entire rundown because I'm expecting two more witnesses, but I don't see either one of them here. Are they coming? You have to unmute first.
Yeah, sorry, sir. Mr. Patry from the military department is actually trying to sign on now.
Okay.
I'm resending him the Zoom link. I mean, until he gets on, I should be able to walk you through what you have or what you're looking at. Great.
The spreadsheet itself, do you need to have that brought up on the screen?
It might be helpful, sir, if that's something that you can do. Sure.
We can probably do that. Alex, did you get that message?
I have the Capitol bill itself. Was there an additional spreadsheet?
The spreadsheet for the Capitol bill is the one we're looking for. This would be Section 11 specifically.
Gotcha. You pull that up.
Okay. Well, Colonel, why don't you get us underway and we'll take it from there. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for the invite. So just to kind of reintroduce myself. So Lieutenant Colonel Jacob Roy, I'm with the Vermont Army National Guard. I am the Construction and Facility Management Officer, actually a dual status military civilian. So I am a GS level employee for the federal government, and I oversee and act as the federal program manager for the federal funds that come into the state of Vermont and work through the cooperative agreements to maintain facilities and infrastructure under the Vermont Army Guard and the Adjutant General's care. So I've been in this position since 2018. I've actually been with the department in different aspects for almost 17 years now. I've been in the Vermont National Guard since 1998. So I've got a fair amount of time in multiple different units and aspects of, around the state. So with the military department, there's I do oversee several different federal employees that are in there, and then I work side by side with folks like John Patry, who I just see just signed in. So the federal programs that come into the state, we've been working really hard to try to grab as much federal money as we can to come in, and right now our program is upward of $18 million for that, and that covers sustainment, construction, payroll, utilities, and stuff that the federal government gives through the cooperative agreement to the state to support the Army National Guard. The funds that you provide us that we're seeing here in section 11, that is the state contribution. So I apply all of these funds to the state match aspect as required through the cooperative agreement. And different components of the Guard require different aspects of state match. All of our readiness centers, for example, when it comes to sustainment, it's a 50-50 share across the board. When we're actually going into additions like construction or any addition into the buildings, specifically the readiness centers, it's a 75-25. So 75% federal share, 25% state share. So that's where, as you see in the section 11, for FY 23, the 900,000 that you see will all be applied toward the state share portions of the facilities that are coded for a state share. So with that, sir, subject to any questions, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Patry, and he can kind of introduce himself and what he does with the military department.
Sure, that would be fine. I don't, your one item on the itemized list here, do we need to keep this up on the screen, or was somebody going to use that for reference purposes?
Sir, I don't see where I don't think we need to keep it up, but I mean, it's now that everybody sees the dollar figures across the board, I think we can take that down.
Okay.
It's up to you, sir.
No, that's fine. Let's take it down, Alex. Thank you, sir. John Patry, you are here.
Good afternoon. Sorry I'm late. Lacking an invitation. As you saw on that spreadsheet, the 900,000 we had requested in this action for additional 200,000. And as I said to the House Committee, as we represented, we wonder if we undershot what the COVID impact was going to be. We expected that by now there would have been kind of some normalization and we would have been out of the woods a little bit more. So the market delays and cost impacts on our projects wouldn't be quite what they still are. So
let me just stop you for a second and ask if you could give us a 30-second biography so folks can know who you are and how you fit into this picture.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm the master planner, construction and project manager. Been with the military department since 1998. So my official title is military operations manager. I've never seen active duty, so it's a bit of a fun title to have. But and in that, managing under Lieutenant Colonel Roy, operations and maintenance of the Army National Guard facilities around the state, construction and maintenance at the firing range, everywhere from Newport to Bennington. So that's what I've participated in, and I tell every single adjutant general that I've worked for that this is the best job I've ever had. It's every day I can turn around and say that I've improved facilities for National Guard soldiers. So it's quite rewarding.
And remind me, is Willie Jane your niece?
You're exactly right. Yes, she is a sharp cookie.
Well, I had my last trial against her back in January.
Oh, okay.
Funny story, but anyway.
Okay, well,
you're here to talk.
I'll hear that another time, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So again, why we're here today is that we're asking for an adjustment. And as I said, I'm afraid we may have undershot what we thought the impact would be by now, but this is where we are. Some projects actually doubled their bid cost from what we had originally estimated their cost to be when we first sought funding for them. So it's been quite a shock to our system. We haven't been able to accomplish near as much as we used to. And we're hoping that that'll kind of normalize and as we get out the other end of this COVID atmosphere with product delays. Site work for projects stayed fairly flat, some inflation due to fuel costs, but anything that had to do with site work were local materials and local resource. They stayed fairly close to what we had estimated. Anything that needs mechanical systems, structural steel, manufactured materials has really cost us a lot more in construction and maintenance. So,
Can you tell us a little bit about what's actually happening on the ground?
Sure. The projects that we're leading are additions to armories that are half the size that the soldiers need to operate in, and we're making do and adding maybe another 10 or 15% to what they would be able to operate in. Improving toilet facilities and modernizing 1950s armories. We have the Bennington Armory under design that will be correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, I think about a 50,000 square foot armory to replace what was a 20,000 square foot armory.
It's actually more around 40.
40,000.
Just shy of 40,000, but it still doubles their current footprint.
Right. The purposes of the funds we're asking to receive will be for additions to Newport Armory and modernization of Williston Armory and not modernization, but certainly major repairs and upgrades of finishes at the St. Albans Armory. All of that goes into the kind of the same fund, and we chip away at the major projects as we can as the projects come in. Roofing costs have been something that has startled us also. Those have consistently doubled what they used to be in cost.
Materials about double the roofing. That's what I was been told. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not, gentlemen, the other major thing that we see, which is which tags into the price increases is the lead time from contractors ordering materials and when they actually show up. We have seen numerous delays in projects just because it takes contractors anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks to get something that typically, even something as simple as a door, could take weeks and weeks before they see something show up. Add any electrical component, those prices have more than doubled, and then the lead times coming in is just absolutely extraordinary. We're looking at some items that for a renovation that we're doing, and they estimated almost 6 months of lead time to get some electrical components that we're seeing. So there is still a significant impact that we're seeing from some of the pandemic. And just to one of the things that John mentioned, to be clear, the Bennington project that he's talking about is one of our major military construction projects that's actually 100% funded by the federal government. That's a $16.9 million building that we're designing for Bennington right now. So we have the military department and the National Guard have actually been pretty successful in trying to get new military construction projects for the state. Everything, I'm sure that you've heard the family service centers that are coming in, as well as hopefully the improvements to our bath lawn and other buildings. We've been pretty successful at trying to get these new projects coming forward. And we have a master plan that we're working on to look at actually starting to phase out and replace some of these older 1950s, 1960s eras armories with newer, more modern facilities across the board. So we're looking at a 25-year plan now to try to get some of these facilities going.
Senator Mazza had a question.
If we get you the $200,000 that you're requesting extra, what does that get you? It gets you more matching money, or how does that work?
Well, sir, it is, yes. Well, I have actually more federal money now than what the state can actually match, quite frankly. I could easily take a couple $1 million of plus up and still be able to match it with the federal dollars that I have.
But the 200,000 would put you in a different, better position for, right? That's what you're requesting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So the 200,000 will easily, with the projects that we have in line to award for this fiscal year, it'll make us whole for being able to do that.
Because I'm sure if you'd have known up front, it wouldn't have been an issue. I'm sure the governor would have put it in his proposal, but it just came about, as I understand it. Is that correct?
As bids started unfolding late fiscal year of the federal fiscal year 21, we started realizing that we were going to be in trouble.
That's what's happening. It's happening everywhere. Every job that we talk about today that's what's happening. It's the expectation, the cost, labor, and materials are gone crazy. What do you use the primary use for the armories are now today? What do they primarily use it for? Is it training, or is it meetings, or?
It's so that on average that the armories that we have today is an assembly location for the units that are assigned to those. Each of them have classrooms and drill halls, so they are able to, and it's also where they store all their equipment necessary to do whatever mission that's required. So it's a place for the unit to assemble, prepare, do initial classes, get supplies and equipment set up so when they can actually go and do the specific training that they're doing. That's in essence what each of those drill, the armories are set up for.
Okay, that's good. Well, one of these days, the years I've been here, I got to visit the Underhill. I've never been there, and it's on my want list someday to do that, because we hear so much about the Underhill Range, and yet it's right close by, and I've never been there. So it's an interesting place. I guess I hear so much about it, but it's a well-kept secret. Not secret. It's quite a place.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful new building. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the new, and the Army Mountain Warfare School is actually just it's coming into its final phases of construction.
Wow.
We're hoping that thing will be fully operational by the summer. But that's that's a $30 million building that for the Army, and has significant impact to the Vermont National Guard.
Wow.
So, but again, I say this with all sincerity. I mean, there's an open invitation if you want to come and see what this facility has and
really
what we do here.
I've heard so much about it from different guardsmen that come into the store, and it's hidden, so you don't even know it's there. It's in the back, but it's a huge facility. It does a lot of good. Thank you very much.
Would make a good road trip. We get back over to Montpelier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of road trips, do you still carry a few legislators over to Fort Drum by helicopter?
I did that trip. Yep.
I did too. It was a great time.
Yep. I did.
In fact, the time that I went over with Mitzi Johnson, and it was when the two guys broke out of Dannemora prison. So we were looking down on the ground to see if we could.
When I got a VIP trip from the National Guard once, only we did it with jets. We jetted from Lebanon.
No, we went a helicopter. Helicopter is fun. You go down low and all over the place. You can see a lot of things. That was fun. Wow.
Yeah.
We used the helicopter. We used the helicopter to get around the facility, but we got from Vermont over to Fort Drum with the jet. That
Well,
was
you were
cool.
special. You were special, I guess. Yeah.
We got
It
to
was a long
watch.
time. It was a long time ago. I think they had more money to play with.
Well, we got to watch artillery practice, and the captain who was in charge of the detail, we asked him if he would let us pull the ripcord, and he said no. But if you want to run out there in that field out there, you can play targets for us.
Jeez.
Captain was
Well, pilots always need training, whether it's carrying legislators or fellow soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun time. It really was. Have you guys made this pitch to the House counterparts in House Corrections and Institutions?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, we did last week.
So they are aware of the ask right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we unfortunately have to wait for them to decide what they're doing with the capital bill before we get to actually make any changes to it to correct what they've done wrong. But we'll wait on it. Yep, we'll wait and see what they've done to you. And if we need to bring you back in to have some more conversation, we'll send you out another invite.
Thank you.
We're available. Yeah.
Committee, any
Anytime,
other-
sir. Glad to do it.
Okay, committee, any other questions, comments? All right.
Just one-
Thank you for your service. We appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Do you
Senator
still
McCormick.
let civilian politicians drive the tank? Because I got to drive the tank while I was over there.
Unfortunately, sir, we don't have any tanks anymore.
Oh,
Well, actually, that brings to mind another question. You have a tank sitting on the lawn of the Lindenville Armory.
No, you're not putting a sign on it, Joe.
I was going to ask if it's still operational because I'd love to drive it down the parade. That would be
I don't want to see a vote for a Joe Benning sign on that tank, okay?
right. All right, but I am curious. Is that still operational?
No, most of the display tanks have been rendered inoperable. However, they are still carried on the inventory as federal property. But that one I do believe the engine and everything has been removed.
Otherwise, they steal it. They steal it at night.
Well, I guess that lets me know I can't drive it anywhere. I'd still like to play in it though. Is the hatch
Good
open?
try. Good try, Joe. Good try.
I don't believe so, sir.
All right. Well,
I think it's actually welded shut. Yeah.
I missed that, John.
I think it's actually welded shut to prevent getting hurt in local community.
Oh,
folks.
let's just open it just
Yeah.
long enough to get Senator Benning in there and we can.
Yeah,
try
he
it
just
again.
wants his picture. He just wants his picture there. I can see that now. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Didn't
right,
do much good for Dukakis, though. I don't know that you want to.
Right. Yeah. Now that you mention it, you're right. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming by and
Thank you.
talking with us this afternoon. We'll be talking to you again, I'm sure.
Great.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
having us, and thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee,
Oh,
we're going to
definitely.
shift gears and talk about clean water now with Commissioner Michael Schneider, who has apparently appeared on the screen here somewhere.
Michael Snyder. Oh my God, we're gonna
I'm here.
listen to him today. We're gonna listen to Mike today. Wow. Are
Yeah.
we lucky?
Mike,
Are we lucky or what? Look at that. Look where he's standing, right in the mountains there. Look at
Yeah.
that. Just beautiful. Hey.
Looks like he's got a new haircut too.
Yeah, God, he's
And are
spruced up
those
for
new
us.
glasses?
Good tie on and everything. Wow.
sure. Oh, yeah. Respect.
Trying to improve his image. What do you
Didn't,
know?
didn't button his collar though.
Oh, geez. Oh, sorry. Oh, boy. We don't want to restrict blood flow to the brain, do we, Senator? Come on.
You gotta pick on Mike, you know.
Good comeback. Good comeback. Michael, I know you've been before us and you've heard my typical spiel about giving a little bit of your
He knows
background
it all,
story.
Joe. He knows it all.
But I will warn you, we learned yesterday that one of our former compatriot legislators was actually listening in to us. So, and I had no idea that we had that kind of clientele out there in YouTube land.
Don't give him a plug. Come on, don't give him a plug.
All right. We are here to talk about section 10. Do you need us to pull up on the screen that section of the spreadsheet?
No, I don't think so. My understanding is there's be a couple pieces here. One would be the forestry roads, water quality. And the other is that we have the parks connectivity project as well. Is that listed there? I think that's my understanding, right? Both?
I believe that is the case. Yes, sir.
Okay. And so I'm happy to speak to both of those. We have, as is our custom, I do have a couple of folks joining, Frank and Nate, who we've met before from our park staff. I know Alex had sent the link, so and asked us to begin a little early, that you were running ahead. So I'm just noting that they may join. I'm happy to go ahead here. Do you want me to start with one or the other? Maybe I'd begin with the forest piece, because the roads piece, that's less about parks. And if you really want to drill into the parks, we'll wait for the guys to be here for that. There's Nate joining.
Yeah, okay. The one question I have for you before you begin with the actual scheduled events, we talked yesterday about the quitclaim deed that had been brought to our attention. And was there anything else you wanted to tell us about that? Because we're going to plan on voting on that issue real soon.
Great. I appreciate that. That's our request for a joint resolution to authorize us to make that change. It's pretty straightforward. I think from my part, we tried to explain it all in the memo I provided. You have that. And so unless you all have questions, which we're happy to address, I think we're good to go. We put everything in there. I know Michael has worked his thing with the language, and if it suits you, we're good and appreciative, but happy to take any questions. There's no crushed stone. There are no swaps. We've encountered so many other things all over the years that you may be thinking of, but this one's pretty simple.
It was at the very end of it, I posed a question to my committee to see who knew the difference between a quitclaim deed and a warranty deed. Suffice to say, my committee failed.
No, I did. Engels had it. We got it.
All right. So, Michael, the floor is yours. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Happy to join with you. For the record, Michael Snyder, Commissioner, Forest Parks and Recreation. Nate McKean, Director of State Parks, is with us, as is Frank Spalding, Parks Project Manager. I'll jump in first to address the one piece in section 10 there relates to forestry access, road water quality improvements. Building on something that began really with the Department of Environmental Conservation had developed a protocol for inventorying municipal roads as part of their municipal roads general permit, trying to improve water quality on municipal roads. They developed a protocol for assessing issues in municipal roads and prioritizing addressing them. We came forward a couple of years ago and said, you know what, we have some 600 miles of roads, forest roads, park roads that are used for recreating public, for forest management access, in some cases for localized commuting. There's significant road network that we have on A&R lands. And we thought, well, we have those similar issues, maybe even in some cases worse with regard to modernizing for water quality protections. So we propose to get some of this funding, water quality capital funding, to help adapt that protocol for use on the public lands, so we could kind of practice what they're preaching and what we as an agency expect of others to do so on our own land. So we've done that. We've worked mostly through that protocol, adapted it, have done an inventory, and now we are conducting some of these kinds of projects. This is things like replacing undersized culverts with appropriately sized culverts. Better yet, replacing culverts with bridges that don't have the same maintenance requirements and last longer. Shaping and surfacing roads, disconnecting ditches from streams. These are practices that we are implementing through the use of local contractors on the network of state lands around the state. So we began with adapting the protocol, doing the inventory, prioritizing projects, and now we've begun making some of those projects happen with about $1.5 million worth of projects. Some have been completed, a handful, some are in progress, and some are teed up to begin this spring. So that's the kind of big overview, what this is about. I know you guys like to think big picture and what are we talking about here? Happy to drill into details, but I could even show you a slideshow of some of the projects that we've been doing. It's great stuff, taking old, abused, poorly laid out roads and making them flood resilient and protective of water quality and aquatic habitat. And I think saving us money in the long run too.
Do you have that PowerPoint presentation available?
I could pull something up quite quickly if you'll entertain my limited abilities here. Let me try to.
We have a cracking good committee assistant named Alex McCracken.
Cracking good. It's going to take me a minute just to pull it up here. Bear with me. Perhaps, I don't know if it's story time or you could ask Nate some really probing question and keep the focus off of me for a minute.
Or Frank.
Or Frank.
And
Well,
I've given you
either
screen
one
sharing
of you-
permission, Commissioner.
Excuse me?
I've given you screen sharing permission, so you're good to
Thank
go.
you. As soon as I pull up the file.
Well, if either Nate or Frank have any good stories about Michael, we'd love to hear them.
Don't hold back, boys. I'm about
You go
there.
first, Frank.
I got nothing.
All right, Michael, don't worry, we got time. Our next witness is until 3:15, although
Believe
Alex
me.
is going to be.
I am, let's see, where is it? There it is. And how we doing?
It's coming.
Something's happening.
There we go.
Okay, this is just one example from Cotton Brook Block of Mount Mansfield State Forest. There's some words on the screen here, but don't be too alarmed by those. We had a couple of big wind events and rain events that wreaked havoc on this road system a couple years ago. Tens of thousands of dollars in damage and thousands of cubic yards of road material displaced. Unfortunately, that much of that ends up in waterways. That's not okay. So we applied this, again, resource assessments were made. This is the idea of using the protocol, doing an inventory. And then we put out to bid using some of this Clean Water Fund / capital money to go out there, do an assessment of the landscape, but really more, I'll just show you the better pictures are of the sort of before and afters here. Just to give you a sense of the materials we're purchasing, modern culverts of appropriate sizing, doing things like changing out culverts in a variety of applications, armoring those culvert outlets, making them the right size, recrowning and grading road surface and shoulders, and then including new surface material in many cases to stabilize. So it's this kind of work that we ask communities to do, municipalities with town roads, and we're trying to do the same and live up to the same standards on these roads on public lands. Challenging locations. Some of these historic roads are in really precarious positions. Contractors have to be top shelf, and we're lucky in the state we have so many of them. In my view, they do kind of almost like artwork out here in really challenging circumstances. This was completely, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of unfortunately, you often don't get the before pictures as well because, it was a rain event and kind of an emergency. So this was completely washed out, gutted, eroded, and it's completely put back to bed. And you'll see over to the left side of the screen, crossing ditches under the road, and disconnecting those channels from streams is really important in the aquatic protections and water quality improvements. But all these sort of vulnerable, poorly constructed circumstances just waiting to blow out, we're going through and removing them and replacing them as is appropriate.
What are you making those culverts out of these days?
It's a polymer, plastic polymers.
Okay.
Mostly.
No rust to them. They last forever, long time.
Right. That's the idea, Senator.
That's what Senator Mazza is made out of. He's going to last forever.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
Formaldehyde is a wonderful thing.
Now, these are town roads or state roads or
These are state forest roads.
state
So they're
forest?
right. They're our responsibility, not municipal roads, not town roads, not state highways.
They're
These
not
are,
open to the public. They public can't go on those, right?
no, they can. No, most of them are gated at some time of the year or another. There's controlled access, but no, many of these are used by the recreating public.
Oh,
They're also used for forest management on our part, for emergency access. And in some cases, as I say, they're used locally as commuter routes for.
where do they bring you up to the top of the mountain or the side of the mountain or?
Some of them are out and back. Some of them make a big loop around and connect to a town road somewhere. This one in particular, right here, where we're looking in Mount Mansfield State Forest, this is gated down below. But you cannot go out there without running into dog walkers, joggers, mountain bike riders, all manner of sports people. It's really important access to a bunch of different places in Waterbury Reservoir, the rest of the state forest, some campgrounds.
Snow machines use them too? You allow snow machines?
They do. And many of these roads of ours are used by vast routes in the wintertime.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
You said this was
And there's some
historic?
local use as well. Sorry?
You said this was historic?
This is part of the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps activity in the area at that time. Built some of these roads, and they're part of flooding what is now the Waterbury Reservoir. This is all harkens back to that era.
Yep.
In
Okay.
that way, they're historic in that way. And again, we brought in a significant amount of material in certain places where that was indicated and required to hold them better together, put up with more use, and we hope cost us less in the future for maintenance. Some numbers here for you. Out of this bucket, just the numbers of roads resurfaced, crown sloped, the variety of projects, money for equipment, road material, labor. In this project totaled out, this is just for this project, totaling $187,000. Paid to several local contractors, recycling the money, we like to think.
Probably
While
did.
investing in-
150,000 2 years ago.
Yes, well, we're feeling that pain for sure.
Oh, boy, I tell you, we buy millions of foot of culverts for the state. And boy, the prices are going crazy. You can't, if you can get it,
Exactly, if you can get it. Well, there's two folks with me here from State Parks that could go on all day about the challenges we're faced in the supply chain, from workforce to materials to laborers. No doubt.
Senator McCormick, you got your hand up.
Thank you. And this is in the capital bill, not the transportation bill.
This stuff is, right. Yes, this has been. There's been a water quality component in the capital bill for, and that's what this stems from and is the recent request. So, right, this is decidedly in the capital/ARPA space.
Okay, so even though it's managed, it's actually roads that were
yeah, but
monkeying with.
they're not
It's all
town,
the-
they're not public roads, they're not
They're
town
not,
roads.
okay.
Right, they're not federal, US routes, they're not state routes, they're not local roads.
They're
These
not-
are
Okay,
FPR owned and maintained roads.
Good try, McCormick, good try.
well, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
I
thanks a
wasn't
lot.
objecting.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, good try, thanks a lot, yeah. Trying to take my transportation money. I know, you're trying to steal my transportation money, that's good.
I was trying to make sure I had it right. That's all.
All right. You want to shift gears to parks connectivity?
Sure, I'm happy to. This request is it's multifaceted really in our rationale and our reasoning here. This is the idea of bringing reliable, consistent connectivity to the parks. What do we mean by connectivity? Most of the parks have a landline, not all. But many of the parks lack cellular and Wi-Fi. And put all this in and you say, well, what's the issue here? We think the issue is, we've been asked, actually in the other body, we were asked, why would you want to put Wi-Fi in the campgrounds? And we're sensitive to that. It's really less about that. I want to be honest. We do hear from visitors that they'd stay longer and they'd come more often if they could connect to work or to family or whatever. So we do hear from our visitors that they'd like to have better connectivity, and we're always mindful and we want to meet that request. We are fiercely protective of the Vermont State Parks brand, as you know, and the visitor experience. We don't want it to be a digital experience, walking around looking at your phone the whole time. I'd like to think people can manage that on their own. So there's a tension there for us, and we pay attention. That's all I'm saying. And it matters, and we listen to so that's part of the rationale. But a much bigger reason for our request here is a business function. Think about the 55 developed state parks, 1 million plus paid visitors. That's a reservation system that's online. There are changes. There are transactions that occur at a contact station that need to be online. We have a new point of sale reservation system. And we've got staff working in contact stations that, we're perhaps leaving money on the table. We're not providing good customer service. So there's a business function there, and it goes beyond that. That's our staff and visitors. We also have a workforce of some 400 seasonals that are the frontline staff in these parks. We have a hard time recruiting them to come live in a park that doesn't have Wi-Fi access. That's an important need for our workforce, and it's part of our ability to attract a suitable workforce is to provide that. Lastly, I would say we're concerned about safety. We have some parks where, sure, there's a landline, but the campers don't have access to it off hours or off season. And so we have some water-based parks that have no connectivity. God forbid accidents happen. It seems silly to be so separated and disconnected. So clientele, visitor demographics and demand, business function in the parks, safety and emergency response. Hence, we're looking for a slug of support to build out this infrastructure, to have complete connectivity through one provider, organized, partnering with ADS, Agency of Digital Services, on this. And it's pretty exciting to think about kind of bringing the parks, this part of the parks, into the modern era with connectivity, while not interfering with that sort of core function of the parks, the vibe, if you will, of Vermont State Parks.
Okay. Committee questions? Michael, you brought Nick and Frank along with you. Were they just bored at the office today, or were they going to tell us something?
No, they're extremely busy people, and they don't commonly run around with ties on, so they both suited up out of respect, and they're here when you guys start asking the tough questions, or to tell you things about me.
Pretty hard to get ahead of you, Mike. Pretty hard to get ahead of you. You got it all down.
I'm trying, Senator. I'm trying.
Questions, committee? Have you pitched all of this already to the other side?
We have.
Get any flack?
No, guys, help me out here. There was no flack. The questions, I think, were, frankly, I remember them asking, isn't this operating? Why? And we kind of said, well, we do have a line item in our budget for operating for this, it takes care and feeding, but no, this is infrastructure. This is not an operating element. And that seemed to satisfy them. Nate, can you remember any other particular areas?
Yeah, I remember the questions, and I think you covered them very well. They were very good questions about visitor experience, what are the real emergency needs, infrastructure versus operating. But they were all just kind of run-of-the-mill good questions. No,
Thanks.
I
So
don't.
does this mean I can make a cell phone call from Woods Island?
Not yet. Not
Maybe
yet.
a stretch.
Senator.
Yeah.
But I recommend smoke signals.
All right.
Other questions, comments, jokes?
You'll note,
I
with that invitation, I can't resist. You'll note there's nothing in this request that speaks to metal detectors. Zero.
Nate,
Well,
was that the state office you're in, or is that that's your own home?
I'm coming to you from my basement office.
No, I'm looking at the other person would be behind you, the last
Oh,
person.
yes, right. This is my sun porch, which is
Ooh.
very chilly this time of year and very hot in the summer. But
Nice.
this is all right.
I thought the state furnished you an office like that. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Michael, when you were talking about the road being historic, my ears perked up there for a second.
Yes, well, we do have, there's quite a history. And I mean, that's true of the park system sort of writ large, right? Is mostly begun in this civilian conservation corps era, with just fantastic and other architecture, great stonework.
Stone walls, foundations, let me know.
Love them.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Well, as you know, the bill is still over on the other side of the building from us, literally and figuratively. But when it comes over, if you've got some issues with what they've done to you, reach back out. We'll have you back in and talk about what we might be able to do to make some adjustments.
Appreciate that very much, Senator Benning, and thank you. And we will do. And same, if you have concerns or questions that come up, you hear things, we're ready to come visit with you when you need us.
Great.
And then
Thanks for coming by.
we do have to keep on the list, excuse me. I assume we'll be back in, but before adjournment, we have to think about a field tour.
Love to do it. I may be a little busy this summer, so we want to do the field tours before we get out of session.
The chair will do it if there's a lot of soldiers there because he's campaigning. So,
No comment.
He said we could go as long as we held one of the signs.
Right.
I'm sorry, the humor gets worse as the afternoon gets longer. What can I tell you?
Time to adjourn.
All right.
Thank you,
guys,
Alex.
for coming
Thank
by.
you.
We'll see you
Thank
again.
you all. Appreciate it. Take care.
Committee, we're going to shift again. We're going to talk a little bit about a bill we were talking about last time around. Becky Wasserman has joined us. Geez, Becky, we don't see you much these days. Are you over with that other body?
It's you, Joe.
I'm everywhere.
Okay.
He has a
I've been
job
a lot
working.
in house institutions and in GovOps a lot this year so far. And I don't know, house energy,
Well,
that's been another one.
Oh, boy.
You can stay away from our chair. We can't. So sorry.
See the humor, it's still as bad as it always was. You haven't missed a thing. I've brought up S-245 to talk again. Committee, you may recall, this is the bill to do something about what was Woodside. What do we do with something by way of Plan B? But specifically, this bill was brought to us by Senator Hooker calling for a retrofit of the Windsor facility.
That's dead.
And well, that's the question, is whether or not we're going to deal with this bill or we're going to officially kill it. So I'm open to conversation about that subject.
I think Senator McCormick and I could, or I don't know about the rest. We could leave it on a wall, but that's up to Senator McCormick.
More conversation?
No comment. Wow.
No, Senator Mazza says it all. I can't match his
I
eloquence.
can't, seriously, all kidding aside, I can't even imagine us going down that road. It makes no sense. It's why would you want to spend $3 million on something temporary? The town has insisted. They've had their share of 50 years of prisons or 100 years of prisons, and they want to get away from it. And I mean, they've done their part over the years, I think, of sharing the state prison. So to me personally, it's a no-brainer. We shouldn't even proceed. But that, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. It's just something that It's got no legs on it. I think the town, like I said, has been very good about it. Look what they've done for us all these years for the state prison. In fact, you mentioned Windsor, just and people, the minute they say Windsor, well, state prison, state prison. I mean, that's what they've had that tagged with them for all these years. And they got some nice open land there, and I think they deserve a break. But that's and to even think about putting a temporary facility there for $3 million, well, you know, nothing is going to be temporary, number one. And if it is, you're going to spend $3 million for something that's going to last a year or 2 years or 3 years. We have to have a facility somewhere located where the community is responsive to it. And there are many communities, something that's going to be there for a long time. If it possibly has to expand, it can expand. I just don't agree with people that don't want it and fight it terribly and justifiably so in many cases. That's something we should pursue, but that's just my nickel.
Okay. Russell, Corey,
now
okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll say, you just heard that from the Dean of the Vermont Senate, not from the senator from Windsor who has an obvious axe to grind. And I thank Senator Mazza, and I think he's absolutely right. I would just also remind the committee of the testimony we heard and the range of attitudes and backgrounds of the people from whom we heard. And the fact is that probably if you look hard enough, you'll find someone somewhere in Windsor who likes this, but they are a decided minority. The town of Windsor really doesn't want this. Now, I know we can put it there if we want to, because we're the state, but because we can doesn't mean we should. And that has been the view of this committee in the past, that we would not force an unwanted facility on a town. Now, I don't know what we're going to do about what's the name of your town?
Newbury.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about that.
We'll talk about that in a second. I just want to get past this first conversation. Corey, Russ, you guys want to weigh in on the Windsor plan?
No, go ahead, Corey. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, normally I would maybe be okay placing something, but I think they've had a prison for so long, and they've done their part for the state of Vermont. I think they're very clear. I'd support Mazza and Senator McCormick here and say let's not do this to them.
Yeah.
And I'd say that Windsor's out of the prison business as well, and they obviously really don't want it there. And I know that there's a community somewhere that would want it there. I would love to think that we could repurpose a building elsewhere, that somewhere where it's just sitting someplace where we could put it into use again. But with being respectful of the state's money, that isn't always the way that things work, and it's not always cheaper. But somewhere along the way, somebody wants this facility in their community and would be proud to have it. And it certainly isn't in Windsor. And I'm sorry to jump ahead of you, Chair, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but neither is it in Newbury.
I might add, Mr. Chair, also, when we're talking about Windsor, it's a bad location for transporting kids and being in an area where they could have better services provided. It's way down in the corner of the state. And I just, like I said, that if you had to pick a spot, if it wasn't there, you'd never even be talking about this issue to locate there. But there are those who think the facility can be used, but not a good location.
So we've got consensus. Windsor is not the place. I'd like to talk about Newbury. And Becky, this is why I actually invited you along, in case we need to do something. I know that the administration is appealing the decision in Newbury, and I guess I want to make sure I'm not coming off misremembering something. But I personally was under the impression when Commissioner Brown came to us initially, along with the Beckett folks, that when they made that pitch, it was pretty clear that if the town did not want it, they were not going to push it. Am I alone in that recollection, or does anybody else have any recall on that? Don't all jump out at once.
Well, I didn't hear, I've only heard what other people have said. And I've only read what other people have provided, I suppose. I didn't hear the commissioner specifically say that they weren't going to push that. I mean, I've heard testimony that that's what's said. I've read some places. I don't know if it was official journalized comments, if that's what was said, but it just seems to be that is a consensus of everybody who has talked against this, that is what Commissioner Brown had said. But I didn't hear Commissioner Brown say that that I remember. But it just seems to be that's what everybody thinks he said. Or you know, he may very well said it. But from what I just think that's what everybody seems to think. That's what Commissioner Brown said.
Okay. Anybody else have any recollection of that conversation?
All I heard one day it was in litigation, or it was proposed, and the next day it's in litigation. So I don't know what at this point we can do. I mean, it's there again, probably never should have went that far. And let people offer their communities that want it. And but now it's in litigation. I don't know what we have to say about it. Do we have any say in it at all, or how does that work? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that directly, Dick, and Becky, maybe you can help out here. The decision of the Town Planning Commission was to deny them a permit. They had appealed that, and I'm not exactly sure where that litigation is right now. But there's two things I'd like you to look into if you can, and it may be that Alex has to help you here. I would very much like to have some kind of a transcript or something from the conversation that was delivered to us initially from both the commissioner and Beckett as to what their intentions were in the event that the town objected. Because I don't want to go out saying anything without having a clear understanding of what that was. And I don't know, Becky, whether it's you or Alex or both of you that would need to team up to pull that back. But I really feel like that's an important part of the conversation before we as a committee decide to say anything, if we're going to say something. But if there is grounds for us to say something, are we running afoul of any litigation that's now pending by doing so? And then secondly, if we are going to say something, eventually, once we get the transcript, what exactly should we say? I feel totally irresponsible for saying nothing if there's something embedded in our records that made a clear statement, because I feel like people got shortchanged in the conversation. Russell.
Well, Chair, you brought up a very good point as far as when you start talking about litigation. And I mean, if it's into that point, I'm certainly not an attorney, but I don't know if we should even be commenting on it, why it's in litigation, but you're an attorney and Ms. Wasserman's an attorney, and you know, I don't know by us commenting on it one way or the other, really, if we should be wading into that.
Right.
But I don't know. That's my thought on that.
Good point.
That's exactly why I asked Becky to come here. She's a better attorney than I am.
Well, we won't dispute that, but you know,
I just want to make sure we are covering bases. And yes, I do feel somewhat parochial in the conversation, but I've got a whole lot of people out there that are thinking we let them down.
I just think that there's a process that's going on right now that's ongoing. And for us to, and I apologize that I probably shouldn't have said anything earlier. I should have just kept my mouth shut about it because I did weigh in on it, and I shouldn't have. But now the more that I think about it and talk about it is why there's a process going on between the state and the town and Beckett and the town, that maybe that ought to play out before we make any decisions on it.
Well, there's another component if you eliminate the word Newbury from the conversation for a moment, and that is, where do we locate a facility like this that makes sense? And that's a different part of the conversation. It could bypass the Newbury litigation altogether, but do we as a committee have some responsibility to say, you know what, we've got certain requirements for these kids, and certain locations don't have those requirements and others do. And if we're posing a particular location and we recognize that the services and the support systems are not there, should we be taking a formal position?
Well, Chair, we really, honestly, in my belief, shouldn't be taking a position on what the kids are and how they are, no matter how we feel about it, no matter how we believe about it. We should be just talking about the building. And because that's the committee that we are. We're a committee that is responsible for brick and mortar, and we're not responsible for where the kids go or even for where the kids go. We're really responsible for the building in itself. And I can simply say that there's litigation going on, or there's a conversation going on that the town doesn't want the building that our committee is responsible for. And I think that process ought to play out before we comment on it.
Anybody else want to weigh in? Senator McCormick.
I think, in fairness, the argument that I just made on my own, and the argument that Senator Mazza made that I endorsed, I would feel a little bit inconsistent if I didn't back you on saying the same thing about Newbury. It's and as far as the brick and mortar issue, and I do respect that we don't deal with program, we deal with brick and mortar. But I think part of brick and mortar is, do the brick and mortar belong there? Deciding, is that the right place to put it? I think I think our domain touches on that. I don't think it overlaps, but I think it touches it. And the question is this an inappropriate place for our brick and mortar? And I think I think it is. And I would also hate to see us getting into a hot potato a thing of you take the problem. No, you take the problem. I think we've got to find a place that is less problematic, and that easier said than done.
I think
we know
have
that
to
these
get-
two places are not good.
I'm sorry, Senator McCoy, I didn't
No,
mean
I'm
to
done.
step over you. I think that time will come once it's decided, once the litigation stops
Yep.
or settles out. I mean, as of right now, there's not a chance for anybody to raise their hand and say that we'll take that, because there's not an option for that. It hasn't been proposed other than one other place. And I think things need to, the air needs to clear before anybody steps forward.
Well, just making an observation, all of your arguments on why it shouldn't go to Windsor are not brick and mortar. They are all of the other connecting components, like support systems, people who want it, people who don't want it. And to me, we are an institutions committee, and I agree that we don't have full control over the operations decisions. But it seems to me where you put that brick and mortar has to be made by somebody. And I can't think of another committee other than institutions that would be in charge of that.
Well, and I don't have a problem of saying it's about brick and mortar. I have a problem of combining of what the use of it's for, and then making that emotional argument about it. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Go ahead, Senator Mazza.
No, aren't we discussing this because we have a bill that says they want $3 million to put in a temporary facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. We've already decided we're not going to go
Yeah.
forward with the bill.
But we had a bill to work with. There was a proposal that we had jurisdiction because it did state $3 million out of our money, right? For a temporary facility. That's a big difference right there. I mean, because we're addressing a bill. We wouldn't be talking about Windsor, I don't think, unless there's a bill. And that's, and the other one, Woodbury, where it is, someone's gonna make a decision of where they are in the litigation, whether we have any axe to grind or not, once we find out where this stands. And I don't know how long that's gonna take, 1 year, 5 years, or you know more about this litigation stuff.
I couldn't tell you with the court system the way it is right now. But Becky, this particular project in Newbury, didn't they come and get money through the capital bill to begin the whole process?
There was money. I think it ended up being in the budget bill, actually.
Eric's giving us the Nazi salute. Hi, Eric.
Hello. Mostly I try and stay out of this, but I saw an opportunity to be helpful. Yes, it's general fund. It's not involved. The capital bill is not involved in this.
Yeah, and I think it's that 3 million amount that is referenced in S-245. So in that bill, they were essentially reallocating what was in the general fund for that purpose, to fit up Windsor,
right,
for this facility.
So why would they have come to institutions with that bill?
Because the 3 million.
Sorry, with the proposal?
The 3 million, is that coming out of the capital bill?
No, that's coming out of the budget. It's
Yeah,
general
so-
funds.
So why do you think they referred this particular bill to our committee?
S-245.
Yep.
Because it would be fitting up a facility, and because it is creating a plan for a long-term facility. The funding for the fit up, the sort of temporary fit up, was just reallocating those general funds, but long-term, if you were going to come up with a plan for a permanent facility, that would likely be capital dollars.
Well,
Time that you talked to the chair of appropriations, Mr. Benning.
you think?
Well, someone has to decide sooner or later where we're going. I mean, we can, it's.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
I do. I mean, I need to look into this appeal process a little bit more, but it is definitely possible that the appeal would go on longer than the legislative session.
Oh, I bet they can drag that forever. Yeah.
Yep. Well, Becky, if you could look into that, I'd like to just get some lay of the land, so to speak, to understand what's out there. But I'm now pausing to think of wonder why they assigned this bill to us. Because technically we have nothing to do with whether 3 million comes out of the budget to invest in this particular refit. I'll wrestle with that, with the approach.
Well, I do think any fit up, and Eric can weigh in here, but any fit up that's actually done, no matter where the dollars are coming from, but it would be BGS doing that work. So BGS would be fitting up a state-owned facility. So that does seem to fall under the jurisdiction of your committee.
Well, the wacky part of it is if we decide we're not going forward on this bill, there's nothing that I would imagine stopping appropriations from deciding they want to go forward on the bill if they wanted to.
if they
Well, I
fund it,
think that they do have to address this $3 million somehow. That was if it's not being used for that purpose, then they probably have to address it somehow and, make some sort of policy decision associated with that money.
Yeah.
but I'm sure if they talk about it, it's gonna, if it comes down to the money part, they can discuss it, but it's gonna come back over to institutions, I think, for the money, or it would be a state-owned building, so unless they got some secret formula they use, but even if they were to say yes, I'll bet you would come back over to us for money.
Yep. Okay. So Beck, you got some work cut out for you. And I'm sure Alex can pull up the transcript if you need to iron that part out. Anybody else want to weigh in on anything? I think that does it for the afternoon.